the notion that something that is mental in essence cannot behave regularly is merely a metaphysical prejudice. Human minds evolved in a planetary ecosystem, and therefore we evolved to be very reactive. And so you could say human minds, which have developed higher level mental functions and are reactive to their environment, they're difficult to predict. But although even human minds can be predicted, and psychology is making progress in that direction, but a mind without higher level mental functions can behave according to precise regularities. Why can't
Right, that's what I want to understand. Why are there these regularities or laws or consistencies in? So you say that, you know, our mind it works in particular ways. Why does it produce the appearance of a brain and neurons and all of that kind of stuff?
These are two questions. So why does it behave regularly? Because it is what it is. That nature clearly behaves regularly. I mean, whatever metaphysics you have, the regularity of nature's behavior is a given. We can predict what nature will do next. That's why technology works. Otherwise, it wouldn't. But the prejudice is that mind can't behave regularly. Well, the news is it does. Even if it's so complex that it's difficult to predict, it does behave regularly. And two, we cannot anthropomorphize that mind of nature out there. That can be probably is a very simple mind, didn't evolve higher level mental functions in a planetary ecosystem. It's an instinctive, spontaneous mind and behaves according to regularities. Alligators have very regular behavior. If you approach them and you cross a certain threshold of distance, they may lunge at you. But if you don't cross that threshold, they never try to lunge at you. Minds can be very predictable. So this is not an argument against idealism. Now, why does it seem the way it does? Now it's a technical answer. So Curt, cut me if you think it's going too far. But there are two reasons for this. One is we cannot see the world as it actually is because there would be information overload. It's like seeing the files in your computer on your desktop exactly the way they are. Millions of open or closed microscopic switches. That's useless. It doesn't favor survival. What you want is to perceive the salient features that are relevant. That's one answer. The other answer is entropy control. If our inner cognitive states would mirror the states of the world, there would be no upper bound to our internal entropy because there is no a priori upper bound to the entropy of the world. So if we were to mirror those states in our inner cognitive states without a bound to our internal entropy, and I'll use an illustrative metaphor, we could melt into hot meat soup because unbounded entropy is not compatible with structural and dynamical integrity. And this has been shown mathematically by some neuroscientists. So we see the relevant and salient information about our environment at a glance. And the result of that is what we call the colloquially physical world, the contents of the screen of perception. That's much more conducive to survival and to maintaining our internal structural and dynamical integrity than seeing the states of the world for what they actually are. To use another metaphor, the contents of the screen of perception are like the dashboard of an airplane. The airplane has sensors. It makes measurements of the states of the sky outside, and those measurements are presented to the pilot in the form of a dashboard. And the pilot can fly based on the dashboard alone, flying by instrument. You don't need a transparent windscreen to see the world as it actually is. Guess what? That's exactly what we do. We have sensors, eyes, ears, tongue, surface of the skin. We make measurements, and those measurements are presented to meta-consciousness, which is different from phenomenal states. It's something that comes on top. It's presented to meta-consciousness in the form of the physical world. So the physical world is an internal dashboard. It does convey accurate information about the real world, but it doesn't look like the real world because not only does it not need to, a dashboard doesn't look like the clouds in the sky, but because it shouldn't in order to control our internal entropy and facilitate prompt reactions to environmental challenges.
I'm even more confused now because you're talking about the way the world seems and how the world really is. And almost all of that second part of your answer seems to me could be spoken by a materialist and make perfect sense. And I don't see what idealism gives you to help with that. I mean, yes, of course, I've talked about attention and attention schema theory. We have to pay attention to things that matter to us. We evolved we evolved the skills that we have and the minds that we have in order to survive and get around in the environment we evolved in, not to have an accurate view of what is actually out there. And now you're talking about things that are actually out there, just as a materialist would, or as a dualist would indeed. So I'm deeply confused now, because I don't know what difference idealism makes and what it adds and how it helps us.
It takes away an extra ontic category that is completely unnecessary, namely something that is not mind, something that is not phenomenal, something that is not mental.
So you're calling all the outside world there. So we have our experiences of the world and so on. And the outside world there, you're just calling that conscious or mental, rather than calling it something completely different and physical. But what does that mean to say that it's mental? That's what I just don't get.
It means that it's of the same kind as your own inner mentation. In other words, it's qualitative in nature. It cannot be exhaustively described in terms of a list of numbers. The latter is materialism.
Okay.
And by avoiding this non-mental stuff, you avoid having to come back from non-mental stuff to mental stuff, which is the hard problem of consciousness. You avoid it altogether. So now you're saying the world out there is made of qualities. These are not the qualities of my perception. These are different qualities. My perception is an internal dashboard representation of the qualities that are out there.
But there are actual qualities out there, and they are mental in some kind of nature that I don't quite understand what that means, that they're mental.
They are mental in the sense that they are experienced by nature. They are experiential in essence. But we don't experience those qualities as they are. We have a representation of those qualities. So now we have to come from qualities, the real qualities that are out there, to the qualities of perception. That's a much easier bridge, because there is no fundamental ontological transition. Now you have mental states of one kind modulating mental states of another. Is this coherent? Of course it is. It's happening every time, every day, to all of us. Your thoughts modulate your emotions. Your emotions modulate your thoughts. Your thoughts modulate your fantasies. Mental states of different kinds are modulating one another all the time in all of us.
You said something a bit contentious there about thoughts and emotions. Are you saying that the thoughts cause the emotions, or are you saying that they are the same as the emotions? Or what are you saying about the relationship between thoughts and emotions?
They are both mental states, so there is no ontic distinction between them. But we use different words because there is something about the respective qualities that allow us to differentiate one from the other. Now, if you have a certain emotion, it changes the kinds of thoughts you are liable to having. Or if you have certain kinds of thoughts, you become more prone to experiencing certain other emotions. So mental states can modulate other mental states. Trivially, it's happening all the time. That's how minds work. So all I'm saying now is that there are external mental states that modulate our internal cognitive mental states. There is no hard problem anymore, but there is still an external world. It's subjective from its own point of view, but objective from our point of view.
I think why I'm bothered about that was because I'm thinking about the time course of thoughts versus emotions and what causes what and so on. And I was imagining an emotion in terms of all the neurotransmitters and hormones and all the other things that give rise to bodily feelings. And when you say that thoughts affect bodily feelings, there appears to be a problem there. But that's the problem that you're getting away with by saying that they're all mental things affecting each other in a mental, the whole world is mental stuff. And obviously that makes sense of mental things affecting other mental things. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what are the neurotransmitters? What are the neuronal firings, the neurons, and all this stuff? There are obvious correlations between this stuff and what we feel from within. Denying those correlations is just silly. It's just, okay, no, you don't even enter the party if you deny that. How can we account for that under an idealist perspective? Under idealism, all matter is a dashboard representation of a mental state when observed from across a dissociative boundary. But forget
say that again. Observed from
across a dissociative boundary, because we have to account for why can't I read your thoughts? Why do I not know what's happening in the galaxy of Andromeda? If it's all only one big mind, then why am I not enlightened, right? So we have to account for that. And the account for that is dissociation, which is something that psychiatry now managed to show objectively with the advent of neuroimaging that it does happen, and it can literally make you blind. So why wouldn't it make you blind to what's happening in the galaxy of Andromeda or in the mind of another person? And then the way it all comes together is all matter under idealism is an inner cognitive representation of external mental states when they are observed across a dissociative boundary. That's what matter is. Now, your neurons are made of the same atoms and force fields that make up the rest of the universe. They are also material. So your neurons are what your inner dissociated mental processes look like when they are observed from across a dissociative boundary. Your body is what your dissociated inner mentation looks like when it is observed from across a dissociative boundary and represented on a cognitive dashboard.
If you enjoyed that clip, then the full podcast is out right now. You can click around here. Enjoy. Subscribe to Theories of Everything to get notified of upcoming podcasts, as there are new full-length podcasts every week on the topics of mathematics, physics, consciousness, free will, and AI.